Hey folks, Chris McLean, Peak Performance and Transformation Coach. Welcome to another episode of the Peak Performance and Predictable Growth Show, the peak performance show for creative agency founders, owners, and leaders, where we explore the agency journey from the unique perspective of those at the coalface of the industry. My guests help unlock and dissect strategies, tools, and tactics that are working right now to help you deliver better results for your clients and grow and scale your agency to 6 and 7 figures and beyond. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome Michel Ariens from .crew. And .crew have developed a new data-based personalization model, which allows them to develop and share personalized content at scale. This results in sometimes 95% lower media spend for the same results as current digital agencies. Sounds super cool. Can't wait to understand more about that and learn more about your journey. Michel, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you for staying up nice and late. It's evening for you, and you're in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, that's correct. It's nice and cold here, and it's about 10 p.m. So, yeah, if my eyes are a bit smaller, it's because it's late.
Yeah, nice. So take us through. What's .crew all about? Sort of what got you started sort of in the industry, and sort of take us through from there to sort of where you're at today.
Yeah. If you allow me to go a bit further back, so my background
Sure.
actually, I started at Unilever as you know, a healthy young professional wanting to learn more about marketing and getting into the Champions League, what I thought was the Champions League of marketing. And I was there for a few years when I actually understood, hey, this company has a large scale, but in terms of marketing efforts, they are quite traditional. And so it was quite slow for my taste. This was actually at the time that I started to pitch to the Unilever board to create startups as a way to accelerate innovation and accelerate new marketing efforts. And during that time, I was allowed to set up my own startup as a Unilever brand, but outside of the business. And that is actually where we started to develop this digital marketing data model that we're currently using. So I've worked for several startups, created my own startup as well. And what I found that there is that was the answer actually, is that startups are very good at this lean startup methodology, which is basically constantly experimenting and testing with new ideas, new solutions. But in the marketing sense of the word, they're not doing that. And the bigger corporations aren't also doing that. So then actually the model, kind of dawned on me. So how can we use this startup methodology of testing, constantly experimenting with new ideas, and kind of infuse that into traditional digital marketing, and that is where the model started. So what's the model? Basically, that's the key question, right? So basically, what we found is that, let's say we have a regular Coke, right? Like a can of Coke.
Yeah.
It can be Coca-Cola or Pepsi, it doesn't matter. But a regular can of Coke. The reason for you to buy that can of Coke might be that you like the taste. But the reason for me to buy a can of Coke might be because I want some energy, want an energy boost. And the reason for someone else might be that that's the one soda that they like. And for someone else, it might be I like to cool off because it's hot outside.
Right.
And so Coca-Cola is used to having one large scale campaign showing one message to a lot of people, and it's all the same. And what we kind of found out is we can predict whether or not you, Chris, would want to buy a Coke because it's hot outside, or because you like the taste, or because you hate water. And by predicting that, we change the content and the messaging that you see from Coke. So you might see a visual of a man drinking a Coke in a hot outside sun, because that is what we predict will be the reason for you to convert. While I would see maybe a woman drinking a Coke and expressing like the energy boost while she's working, because they would know we would know that that works best for me. And that is actually that's basically the model. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting, that super custom, super focused personalization of marketing. Yeah, it's really interesting. So without getting too much into it or giving away IP, I guess, where is that data attribution coming from? How are you, is it AI based? Is it machine learning? What's behind the algorithm? How are you making those predictions?
Well, actually, we don't. So that sounds quite weird. So we predict based on historic data. So what we do is, in the startup fashion, we kind of roll out maybe 1,000 different ads that try out all these minor changes, all these minor changes for you and for me and for everyone. And based on what we call, let's say, an engagement heat map, we kind of identify where do we see above average return on investments with our ads, and then we kind of delete all the bad performing ones, and we create buckets of well performing ad groups and creatives. So it's so we test this out in like a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then we identify the right places to put your money, basically.
Right. So you're essentially just doing massive split testing out the gate, rather than just going, here's my one ad, I'm going to run that for a week and see if that works well. You're doing 20, 30, 40 off the bat and sort of picking the winners.
Yeah, so what we do, so we basically have a very simple 3-step model. So one is we kind of, together with a brand, identify what are all the potential target audiences, right? It's very marketing or marketeers way of saying, no, our product is for the entire country. Like every household needs a car, or every household wants a Coke. But we kind of segment that huge target audience with a lot of different audiences. And then, so we might have like 100 audiences, and it's tiny segments, right? But they're all based on behavior. So we're not segmenting on age or on location. And why are we challenging us that way ourselves? Is because when you target on age, you make the initial mistake that someone that's 30 can still be a student, or can already be a father of 3, can have a very well-paying job, or can have zero money in the bank. So age is not a really good determinant of behavior. So we're really focusing on what do you like, what are you following, or which websites are you visiting, to identify your behavior, and therefore what we predict might be your most interesting communication variant. Is that clear?
Yeah, it makes sense. You're just getting like micro targeting on behavior, and that that makes a lot of sense. That your standard sort of demographics, geographics may not predict, or really at a micro level doesn't have an exact correlation to behavior. Instead of a 40-year-old person could be broke, or they could be a millionaire, or they could be a father, they could be single. So that's very interesting.
So that is then the first step. Then we have like 100 different segments, and then we think for each segment, what are like 3 to 5 reasons they specifically would be interested in this product. And it could be like there will be a lot of overlap, but we're still thinking for each segment what would be, let's say, the unique selling point for them. So when you're talking about a car, for instance, maybe a 40-year-old mom of two wants a large space, but larger car for like bags and stuff. But on the other hand, it could also be that they want a professional looking car because they want to go to work, and we can have like all these unique selling points for every segment. And
Yeah.
then the third step, sorry for the light, and then the third step would be to kind of find variants of all these USPs. So that means that one target audience would have, let's say, 3 USPs, and then for every USP, we would have like 3 variants of ads. So this means that each audience would have around 9 to 12 ads, and this is how we get to, let's say, 1,000 for a random test.
Yeah, wow. So you're really going.
Makes sense?
Yeah. No, yeah. I really like it. Like in the past, I've done some variations of split testing where you sort of put in, here's 3 or 4 images, and then here's 3 or 4 headlines, and here's 3 or 4 pieces of copy, and then run that. And it's sort of, you come out with what, 20, 30, 40 different variations on that.
Sure. Yeah.
Sort of testing how that works. But this is, this is that on a much broader scale where you're ending up with 1,000 variants and then really testing those in.
And actually, this is exactly what we're trying to challenge, because there in the past I've done the same, but let's say you want to market a school, right? Like a college. It's quite weird to me that we're showing ads on TV or on bus stops, showing like a girl going into a library. But for many college students, going to the library for them is not something that they aspire to, right? Some people want to go to college to have a good time or meet new people. And so choosing an image of a girl with a certain complexion, right? She might be very white or very brown or somewhere in between. It only appeals to a certain group, right? So, and we as a people, we are looking to kind of a picture that we can identify with, right? So a picture for me ideally would be someone who's bald like me, and in my age category, to kind of that I feel identified with the company that's trying to sell me something or tell me something. And this is actually the insight that marketers seem to have forgotten along the way, that they just go for the broad strokes and hope to hit as many people as possible, while actually we see these huge spikes in engagement and performance if you just show, let's say, people like me, pictures of people like me, and if you show people that are looking for friends, pictures of friends and so forth.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and like that sort of, in terms of an analogy, that's the power of digital, right? Is that you can do 1,000 variations, whereas on a bus stop or on a bus wrap, you've just got to pick an image. You can't change a bus wrap or an outdoor piece as often as you sort of said. You've got to pick. It's this type of person. It's male, female. You sort of go in a very broad scope of this. This is the image that I'm going to go with, and this is kind of this is a generic version representation of my market, but it's never going to be an exact. It might not be exactly as resonant as me seeing someone that has a mustache and is my age group doing the activity that resonates with me. Yeah.
But if I may, so when I was still working at Unilever, our goal always was to launch a product nationwide. But what if you go back and just test in advance? So where do we see people actually clicking on our product proposition? And for instance, if it's rural areas, then why not only have discussions with retailers that are in those areas, and then use the images that worked well on the bus stops, right? So right now, it's the marketers themselves that choose whether or not they go for picture A, B, or C on the bus stop, while we actually test first online what works well, and then we decide what would be like the broad stroke to actually use on a bus stop or use in a TV ad. So if we see that on every ad we show with a certain woman or certain man or certain product actually is highly above average performance, then we know we need to use that image or that girl or that man or that product in, let's say, the less targetable channels.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That you're actually doing that pre-testing. You're sort of using it as much to get that depth and get the conversions, but you're also using it as a testing model to work out what I think is Gary Vaynerchuk always says the market decides, right? The customer's always right, but the market's always going to decide. So I really like that approach that you're literally letting the market choose what they want to see, and then if you can then apply that to your creative rather than traditionally you make that choice as the creative director, as the art director. You kind of say, well, I understand consumer behavior and I'm putting myself into it, and I'm one person making a decision on what the image is going to be because it's my preference. You're sort of switching that around and allowing the audience to decide what they want to see, but across a massive scale.
Because it's quite arrogant, right? I mean, because I used to do it, right? So I'm not trying to offend anyone. I did the same. I kind of decided, okay, this is why people should buy my product, and this is what they want to hear, and this is how I can best show that. But every day I'm fighting to get my visual or my message in between cat movies or like a baby video of your aunt or niece, so you have to kind of earn people's attention, and many markets are kind of just blowing and hoping that someone is actually seeing this and find it interesting. Well, if you turn it around and try to understand what your audience actually wants to see, it's much easier to create something that they're looking for.
I really like that. And having done all of this testing and research, does it give you a pretty good insight to kind of trends, like macro trends? Are you finding, what sort of insights are you getting? Is it pretty random, or are you able to kind of tease out trends and insights that you can sort of start to predict where things are going, or at least see what's happening within certain channels, within certain types of campaigns?
That's actually a very good question. I haven't gotten that one a lot though. No, so I think the first trend is more like an insight, is that basically every one of our clients is wrong. So when they come to us with, let's say, a brief, usually they say our brand doesn't want to be negative, so we don't want to talk from a problem. We just want to show a positive solution. And actually something like that is rarely the case. So so we actually see that brand managers, what they assume is right is usually wrong. But if you look at the trend, so what we actually see is that if you use, let's say, semi-produced user-generated content, it's actually performing well above average. So having very nicely produced but still looking user-generated content is very good. So if you can do that always. Second is don't talk about the product as being like trying to sell it. But we actually see when you talk about a problem that people are having, you don't have to sell your product. So actually the engagement is much higher and much better when you talk about, let's say we had a client who was selling showers. So we're actually creating ads talking about how difficult it is to have fungus, in your bathroom. And we actually saw a huge amount of engagement of people wanting to understand, okay, why do I have fungus in my bathroom? How can I kind of solve for this? And do I need a new bathroom or something like that, a new shower curtain, or so talking about a problem without showing or necessarily talking about your product as a solution in the same ad is actually performing above average across the board. So those two are really, really interesting. I think the third is to really try and talk to a person to understand them. So what we see is when we talk to a mom as if we are a mom, it works way better than us, the brand.
Yeah.
So, and this goes for any audience. So if you're targeting students or young professionals or grandparents, really talking to them as thinking of a grandparent, it works all the time.
I think those are massive insights for the people that are that are running agencies that are sort of trying to do this user targeting. That's some pretty deep insights there, and you've got this. This is data backed, right? This is actually coming from. This is the insights coming from and trends coming from.
Yeah, to give you an idea, like the averages on Facebook, right? If you just look on the averages performance, I don't know exactly what it's. You're from Australia, right? So I don't necessarily know what it's there. But if you look on global scale, click-through rates are about 1 to 1.3%, and cost per clicks are maybe 70 to 90 cents. Okay. And what we're getting on average on campaigns like this is click-through rates of higher than 10%. Easy. Structurally, right? Not on 50 euro spent. Now we're talking like big budgets. And we're talking about cost per clicks of lower than 10 cents. Just because we're getting that much higher engagement, and we're really implementing these insights, like getting this user generated content semi-produced, getting like talking to people as if we're them, and all these insights we're actually deploying in every campaign, and that's where we see this massive increase in performance.
Yeah, I think that's super critical to know. I actually love the call out you made about the negative versus positive marketing, because this comes up a lot, and brands want to be chummy and positive and not have a negative message, but there's a biological hardwiring in human beings that we just respond to negative. It's baked into how we operate. It goes back to reptilian brain and all this. We respond to negative.
Oh, really? I actually didn't know that. I just thought people want to have a feeling that that they are understood. So by saying this helps you clean your bathroom, they would think like, why would I need that? But by actually saying you have a dirty bathroom, or if you show them a dirty bathroom, they are like, oh my god, I have the same, and then they're open to a potential solution.
Yeah, I think there is that balance there of when you think of negative is more about we do understand the problem, and here's your challenge, and we do understand that problem. But in terms of position a positive message versus a negative message, there is a sort of a primitive primal response that we're more our attention gets focused on negative, and that's why watch the news. Right, go and watch the news. Exactly. All the headlines are negative. It's all about. There's always a negative lead in to the story. It's always positioned in a sort of a negative sort of way. It's sort of framed that way. So that's potentially why that works so well.
True.
Yeah, so it's interesting seeing advertisers trying to move away from that, but it's just that's what works a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Sort of unfortunately, you want to be, but if you can, as you say, sort of shift it into, it's I'm going to say it's negative, but it's more about we understand your challenge, we understand your
exactly. You don't want to like pile on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. That they're really interesting insights, and like I said, these are data backed. It's coming out of thousands and thousands and thousands of iterations of testing. So
exactly.
Really interesting to understand that. If people want to get in touch with you, if they do want to sort of find out more about what you do and kind of drop into the .crew world and work with you, understand how you help clients and how they can work with you, what's the best place for people to come and connect with you?
Yeah, so we're actually because we're rebranding our company, so it's Crew. Crew is our company since a few months. So we're actually a 6-year-old agency with previous name before. But the best way to reach out is on LinkedIn. But feel free to follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. I'm always available. I love connecting to new people. So just hit me up, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm happy to share.
Awesome. I'm sure people will like to reach out and get involved in what you're doing, because if you're getting, what's it, 95% increases in return, that's pretty significant.
Yeah,
in terms of
I always say if you spend more than 5,000 euros in ad spend, my work is basically free, because I'm saving you enough to pay for our services.
Yeah, well, love it. That's a pretty pretty compelling sales pitch right there.
I would say so, right?
Awesome. Really appreciate your time. I appreciate you staying up super late and joining me on the show here. And thanks for everyone who's listening. Again, there's some really insightful stuff that came out of this discussion. And please feel free to go and connect with Michel and understand more about what they're doing and get some of those insights for yourself. But yeah, appreciate your time for jumping on the show. Appreciate the value add. And thanks everyone for tuning in at home. And until next time, we'll see you on the next show. Cheers.